Nobody's even seconding that or proposal that. Thank you, members. Thank you, Paul. Okay, the next agenda item is notices of motion, and we begin with Councillor Duffy to move.
Thank you, Mayor, and take the motion as read and ask for a seconder just. Thank you. Mayor, today I want to speak on behalf of the social work students across the North. The future of a profession built on compassion, resilience and the belief that every person deserves to be heard and protected. Earlier this month, some of us attended a conference in Magee and heard directly from the students and listened to the hardships that they face. These students do not simply sit in lecture halls. From early in their training, they step directly into placements where they face real-world challenges. They work with families in crisis, advocate for vulnerable individuals, and help to hold together the fabric of our communities. They do all this, often full-time, without receiving a wage. And yet they pour their time, energy and their hearts into helping others. Many social work students are living in poverty themselves. They're being forced to make impossible choices between attending placements or working part-time jobs, between paying rent or buying food, between finishing their degrees or dropping out completely. And this doesn't even take into account those students with care and responsibilities. The current bursary does not come close to meeting the basic cost of living. Students are expected to juggle academic work, professional placements, travel costs and sometimes childcare, all while trying to survive on a financial support package that falls desperately short. The impact is devastating. There are students who skip meals to make ends meet, students who work late into the night after long placement days simply to afford rent or bills. Students who lie awake at night wondering if they can afford to finish the very degree that they have worked so hard to begin. This is not just about hardship, Mayor. It is about injustice. It is wrong to expect so much from these future social workers while offering so little in return. We are already facing a social work recruitment crisis across the North. If students are forced to abandon their training because of financial pressures, we risk losing passionate, skilled individuals at the very time when we need them most. Increasing the social work bursary is not just about financial support. It is about respect. It is about sending out a message to these students that their work matters, their sacrifices are seen, and their futures are worth investing in. We cannot afford to lose these students, and these students cannot afford to be ignored any longer. So I ask everyone here today to support their campaign for fairness and equality, for an increase in the bursary that allows them to continue their studies without fear of hardship. Gormugga.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Duffy for making the proposal. I'd like to welcome and speak on support of the proposal on behalf of the SDLP. Social work is a valuable profession. It's a much needed profession, and that needs to be recognised by the Department of Health. The current bursary has remained static since 2008. It was £4,000 a year in 2008, and it's still £4,000 a year. And in that period, inflation has increased by 60%. So it really needs to increase because the cost of living has gone through the roof. We need to see investment in social work. We need to see investment in social work students. And the clear message coming from this council today should be that the bursary and the associated allowances must be increased. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. I have Alderman Middleton online.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me in, and thank you to Councillor Duffy for bringing this motion forward. The DUP are in full support of our students and the many financial hardships they face, as well as the difficulties that they face with their well-being and sometimes their mental health due to these stresses. We recognise the need to offer support for the students' studies and their costs of living and their housing-related costs. With yearly inflation It goes without saying that a fiscal amount set in 2008 to support social work students needs recalculated properly. It needs addressed and it needs suitably implemented. We must be careful as council that if we're proposing numbers that we take them from credible sources. The DUP are in full support of today's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Councillor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us on. I too, along with Councillor Duffy, Councillor Hagan, I attended the recent meeting down on the campus, which was well attended by quite a number of students. And I found it very shocking, you know, that what was getting put in front of these students, the many barriers that were getting put in place that increased, you know, their chances of dropping out, and the retention rates for these courses was like falling apart. And when you wonder, like, that the need for social workers, qualified social workers, is being greatly identified, and government is allowing all these barriers to be faced by students, and you're scratching your head going, at the wrong end. They're not supporting the students coming through, and how do they expect anyone to reach the qualification stages and wonder and scratching their head why there's a shortfall? It's unbelievable, and it can't be reconciled unless they support the students and they support this campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Duffy for bringing in the motion today. And the event that we attended and spoke at was excellent. There was probably hundreds of students at that event, and I think the students spoke really well for themselves in terms of why they became social work students and what they're facing in terms of like juggling being students, running households and working on top of it. And many of them are struggling and considering dropping out of social work. So I think that this is this is a campaign. So they are calling on councils, political parties, and others to support them and get behind them. And I think it's very important that we do. Look, they talked about the fact that there is a food pantry or a food bank at the McGee campus. So that's where we're at in terms of like the struggles that students have. And we don't want social work students dropping out because there's already not enough social workers in our society. There is actually, there's too few social workers, and that's got to do with pay and burnout and a host of other challenges that social workers are facing. So we actually need to get to support these students because we need more social work. We need more social workers. So I have put through a slight amendment to what Councillor Duffy put in the motion. The campaign and the students made it very clear. They have recommendations that they're campaigning on. They want the bursary to be in the student incentive scheme to be increased to at least or a minimum of £7,000 a year, and they want the travel allowance increased to £1,000 a year, and they want that reviewed each year based on inflation, and that's what they are saying they need to be able to sustain themselves. So they're fighting for themselves, but they're also thinking about the next students that come in next year and the year after. Otherwise, this will be unsustainable. So it's a slight amendment, but because it's the amounts that they put up for us councillors and others to see, and then I think it would be a great opportunity for them to be able to further the campaign if they were able to come in here and speak to the full council, because they had representatives there. Student workers themselves, they had representatives from the student union, they had representatives from the a couple of different trade unions that represent them, and they also have the full backing of the social work department at McGee. And I think it would be a great opportunity for them and for us to have them in here at a council meeting, because I think it really speaks to the challenges that a lot of students are facing, and I think it'll help them basically build up awareness about this campaign. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. We have Alderman Guy. And we got a seconder for the amendment, by the way. So do you want to speak to the amendment or both? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to say, totally agree with everybody's what they've said before me here. Bursary falls well short. I suppose I should declare an interest too that my daughter was is a qualified social worker and went through McGee. She went through at a time when it was during lockdown, so there was extra payments made at the time to anybody that was doing health and social work at the time, which she benefited from. Had she not benefited from that, and even though she was still living at home, she would have struggled, you know. So totally agree, and I totally back the calls for better payment and better bursaries, and also the fact that when these students go out into the world, when they get a job in social work, and that's no problem in getting one because they're crying out for them, but the stress that they be under and daily from their job, knowing as well that they have to pay a student loan back or something like that, they definitely need more help, and they even need more help as their job and role continues in their life, because they are under immense stress. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Guy. Alderman Hossain.
Just speaking briefly to the amendment, if Councillor Harkin can clarify why an annual review as opposed to index linked?
Councillor Harkin, would you like to respond to that before we move on?
Yeah, thanks, Alderman. Ossie. So that's what they called for in terms of like the recommendations or the demands that they were putting forward. So that's, I think, their words rather than mine in terms of so if inflation goes up, they would want the bursary or the student incentive scheme to be increased by that amount.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. I do not see anyone else indicating to speak, so I will ask Councillor Duffy to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you everyone for the support for the original motion. And I'm not sure why the amendment was necessary, because the actual motion says that we support the objectives of the campaign, which Councillor Harkin has then gone and amended the motion to spell out. You know, it was contained within the motion. In terms of the second bit, I have no problem with that either, because every party represented here was invited to go to the conference and was invited to take part. Not everybody did. So it'll do no harm for people to hear directly from the students themselves in the campaign and what's going on. The students themselves laid this out really, really clearly in terms of the hardships that they're facing, using food banks, taking out credit cards, not being able to heat their homes, skipping meals, moving back home with parents or family. And you know what? A lot of those students, the majority of those students were women. And women, again, were being the shock absorbers for poverty within our society. And I think that it's really important that we, again, put our weight behind this campaign, because what we don't want to see is loss in the workforce of really passionate people who want to get into the workforce, who want to care about people and want to have an idealistic view of the world where they can actually make a difference and do something. And a lot of those students were talking about their own mental health. They were talking about the burnout that they feel. And at this stage, they are students. They shouldn't be feeling that burnout. Burnout is something that you feel a number of years into a career, possibly, not while you're still a student. You should be enjoying your student years, and that is not something that came across from that conference at all. So I'm glad that everybody here has supported the motion as it stands. And I do look forward to them coming in here and everybody hearing from them in terms of the difficulties that they're facing. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Members, I jumped the gun there because I asked for to sum up before we vote for the amendment, so apologies for that. Could I ask for a vote? Is there anyone voting against the amendment? No one? Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone voting against the substantial motion? No? Okay, thank you very much. So well done. Next motion is Councillor Riley and Alderman Guy to move.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for bringing me in, and I'll wait till the motion pops up on the screen and then take it as read, Mayor. That's okay. Thank you. So we all know that significant flooding has happened in many areas across the council area over the past decade and beyond. The SDLP ensured that we didn't let this slip from our thoughts and ensured that through the Environment and Regeneration Committee, we would get monthly updates from the department and other agencies around what was being done to try and alleviate the issues for people in these affected areas. The motion references two areas that we get the regular updates on through ENR, but obviously many locations across different regions of our council area have similar concerns, as Councillor Devine, having raised Newton Stewart earlier today, is a good example of that. Residents in Ivymead and Eglinton are frustrated at not knowing what the timescales are for improvements, clarification on the costings for those improvements, and then the commitment to having the resources in place to deliver those when they are out of design stage. The irony of today possibly being the warmest April day on record since 1984 is not lost, but these residents are anxiously watching the weather all the time, and we know from having heard them in talking to them directly, but also over the airwaves, of how that affects their mental health, that affects their planning for their summer holidays, that affects any trips, any family occasions that they have. They are always worried about what the weather might bring for their home and the area that they live in. So, Mayor, the motion calls on the Minister, encourages her to visit our area and hear from those citizens, to give them some answers to those questions in relation to the timescales and the costings, and I hope that it can attract support from across the chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Alderman Guy?
Thank you, Mayor, and I'll do this from memory because it's disappeared off my iPad. So, no, just to support the motion and basically say that, you know, since the flood in 2017, the residents of Ivymead have really been put through the mill. You know, what was supposed to be a 1 in 100 year event was basically has seen that recent flooding up to 3 or 4 more times in certain parts, and different parts of Ivymead, and of different causes as well. Recent developments above the area have caused other issues, and other issues which have seen flooding in other parts of Ivymead. An elected member or herself there, Alderman Cook, her own mother and father's house was flooded because of the issues, and this was caused because of bad decisions by departments in, let's say, the infrastructure in new builds. Then we have the issues of the 2017 flooding and houses that actually had put in flood defences only to find out that they were useless, that their houses flooded and retained the water during that flood. Now, we then see now that another development in Drumahoe, on the Drumahoe Road, has been allowed to go ahead, planning permission granted. And it's beggars belief as to why it is, because it's in a complete floodplain that basically has flooded for as long as I can remember in that area, but yet they've allowed building to commence in it. So the people in that Ivymead area, they're of great resilience. They have basically, a lot of them actually found out by chance that they were no longer covered for flood RE insurance. Any house built after 2009 was basically wiped from their insurance. So they had no way of insuring their homes. People have had bother trying to sell their homes in that area. And obviously, some people have been able to move, but the majority of them will have no hope of ever selling their homes. So I would just like to call on the Minister to actually visit them. Now, it wouldn't be the first time the Minister visited them, because Minister O'Dowd visited them back after one of many flooding occasions down in that area. And he did speak to residents, and they were more than thankful for him coming along. but they felt that he just didn't spend enough time with them, because that day, I think that day he had to go on to Strabane and other places as well. So I think the call for the minister to come down and actually speak with residents, these are well-versed residents. There's not going to be a shouting match or anything like that. They would just like to come down, get the ear of the minister, and actually know that the minister is fully behind them and will push for this work to go through whenever this project is finished, hopefully in 2026, and then the money can be found and it can be moved on to design and project stage. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Guy. Alderman Cook?
Thanks, Mayor, for letting me in, and thanks to Councillor Riley and Alderman Guy for bringing this motion forward. This is something that I have had to deal with personally, as I lived in one of the affected areas, and I have to say that it hasn't been easy for any of the residents. Any rainfall, and Councillor Riley's right, they're glued to the weatherman, you know, or they're running to their nearest burn or river, taking its measurements, and many other precautions to protect their homes from floods. Living in the area and seeing the devastation on the whole community's faces in 2017 was horrible to watch. But to see that fear of the unknown still on their faces 8 years later is unacceptable. We understand that the flood alleviation scheme is in design, but we need to see action. So I look forward to hearing the response from the Minister. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Alderman Cook. And Councillor Alex Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Martin and Alderman Guy for bringing the motion forward. We're fully in support of the motion. We fully agree that the minister should come down and spend time with the people and listen to their concerns. And it is evident that it is an ongoing issue that we all, especially the rural councillors and as Waterside as well, and then in the affected areas, are deal with. Even when there's a heavy rainfall, there's people panicking and there's people calling for sandbags and everything. It is an awful situation for all them people to be living in fear constantly. So we call on the flood elevation scheme to be completed as well. But unfortunately, budget restraints and when you want something done right, then it's going to take time. We all know that as well. So. No, thank you for bringing the motion, and we fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Members, I do not see anyone else indicating to speak, so I will call Councillor Riley to sum up.
We're happy for it to go to the floor now for a vote, but other than that, just to thank everyone for the comments and look forward to hearing the answer from the Minister in due course. Thanks.
Thank you, members. Members, there's no dissenting voices on this one either, so my assumption is unanimous. Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next motion, and Councillor Hart to move.
Thanks, Mayor. Take the motion as read, and can I ask for a seconder?
Thank you, Councillor Devine.
As workers celebrate May Day throughout the world this week, this council calls for the delivery of equal and fair rights for all workers and welcomes the good jobs employment rights legislation currently being considered by the Stormont Assembly. This bill presents an unparalleled opportunity to grow a productive regional economy that benefits our businesses, our workers and their families within the all-Ireland and global economic context. Good jobs, which deliver fair wages, guarantee secure employment with strong union recognition and collective bargaining rights, are the cornerstone of an economy that values inclusive growth and a fair distribution of wealth. The bill will ensure the fair treatment of workers in regards to pay, tips and gratuities, holiday pay and parental leave, as well as bringing tangible benefits to workers' lives across our entire community. This council endorses strong, progressive workers' rights legislation to build a strong regional economy in which both businesses and workers prosper, and we finally begin to eradicate the scourge of workplace inequalities.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. I have Alderman Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, thank you for letting me in. Whilst we are supportive of the motion and working conditions for employees, we must ensure that the legislation does not create further burden on the employers. Some of the business representative groups have raised concern about the initial proposal from the minister. Therefore, we'll be abstaining from that today.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Gallagher? Councillor Gallagher?
Yeah. That's it for 5 minutes.
Till I hear the mood in the house.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
Thanks,
Councillor.
Listen, Mayor, well, I concur with most of the stuff that's on the motion. Mayor, I'd also like to bring an amendment, slight amendment that I've sent to Teresa.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, we could talk all day about equality for workers, legislation and all the rest, but once there's in legislation, there's the allowance for 0-hour contracts. There will never, ever be fair pay, fair equality amongst workers. So we must and need to call for a ban on 0-hour contracts. Mayor, there's families in the city and district that don't know on a Monday morning what they're going to be like on Friday for wages. That's the reality. They don't know if they're going to get 1 hour, 2 hours, 5, 40. They don't know. And there is a reality that there's unscrupulous employers that are using it against workers, pits workers against workers. It pits people against people on who work, against people who are on benefits. It's not fair. And we can't talk about equality and employment while 0-hour contracts exist. Therefore, we need this council to call on a ban on 0-hour contracts. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Gallagher. Members, I do not see anyone else who would like to speak on that motion unless there's somebody who wants to weigh in on, Councillor Harkin? Is that on the amendment or overall? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. And this week does mark May Day, International Workers' Day, not International Workers and Business Day. And there will be people taken to the streets all over the world on Thursday and over the weekend to mark the struggle of workers throughout time, but also the present day struggle. And I think you'll see in the United States massive resistance to the Trump agenda. Millions of workers will be going on strike and marching starting on Thursday. And we very much stand in solidarity with them. And people here in Derry will be marching on Saturday at the May Day March and Rally, similarly in Belfast and in Dublin as well. And I think that Stormont has failed to act for decades to improve, to bring in legislation to improve things for workers. And I think that there's a lot of hope that this Good Jobs Bill will do that. There are still questions about it because it is not a finished product. So to say we're going to fully endorse it, I think we have to see what the final piece of legislation looks like. And that's the attitude of the ICTU as well. They've said that this isn't done yet. And I think I'm glad that Councillor Gallagher has brought in a motion. The call to ban 0-hour contracts is included in the New Decade, New Approach agreement. And it's not part of this Good Jobs Bill. My understanding is that employers were able to say, we don't like this. And so that has been weakened and watered down now. But that has been a central demand of the trade union movement for a long, long time. Indeed, it is the corporate position of this council over and over again that we would call for a ban on 0-hour contracts. We have done that in our own council, and we have regularly asked council officers for assurance that there is no 0-hour contracts. So the idea that we were going to now endorse on May Day, on the week of May Day, a bill that doesn't ban 0-hour contracts, I think is problematic. So I think that, and there's other issues with the bill as well to do with demands that unpaid carers will get, and there's other things as well. So I do think that there is a lot to celebrate this year, this week in terms of May Day, and I'll be joining the May Day March. I think that the Good Jobs Bill needs to go a lot further in terms of if it wants to improve the balance between workers and employers in Derry, across the district and right across the north. Much of what's in this bill seems to me to be an imitation of what already exists and has come through Westminster. So I think we should be through Stormont looking for a better deal for workers, better than what the Tories and Starmer's Labour Party is willing to offer. So I think that there's more work to be done in this bill, but we will support anything that improves the lot of working class people across the north.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Okay, Councillor Mooney.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Councillor Hirsch for bringing the motion. We'll be, on behalf of the SDLP, we will be supporting the motion and we will be supporting the amendment put forward by Councillor Gallagher. Reading through the sort of the guidance, I understand that the consultation ended in September, but the bill was supposed to be produced by the end of March. Looking last night, I didn't see any bill yet, which was problematic for me at some level, because you want to see what's going to go before the Assembly. You can catch your eye over and see what's actually going to be, debated within the Assembly. But as was alluded to by Councillor Harkin, things like that there, I mean, even initial looking at it, the department's response summary on the zero-hour contract was apparently that out of 110 responses to the zero-hour contracts, 30 responses agreed that there should be a ban and 80 didn't. So that's one actual aspect of what probably is going to be, influencing the economy minister and perhaps the executive. But in light of actually seeing what's going to go before the Assembly floor, we're just speculating at the moment. So, but apart from that, I mean, our position at the minute would be that we would obviously support the motion, because it's actually going to secure and strengthen workers' rights and consolidate legislation that's probably in various documents at the minute. We'll also support the amendment in relation to zero-hour contracts. So thank you to the member for bringing it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mooney. Okay, members, for the first time, I think we have dissenting voices, so I'm going to ask for a vote for the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor.
I think DUP are abstaining. Yeah. Yeah, we're voting on the amendment first and then go to the substantial motion. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah. Are you looking, Councillor Jackson, are you looking to speak on the amendment? No?
If there's an opportunity to speak in the amendment, you've called a vote now.
I'm happy for you to speak to the amendment, and you are also asking to come in? No? Okay.
No, and I suppose just the motion that's in front of us was focusing on the legislation that has been brought through by the economy minister. But we have in this council have passed motions and have taken a stance in relation to zero-hour contracts in the past. And it is only right and appropriate that we reiterate the views of this council. This bill severely restricts the use of zero-hour contracts. But in line with our council's position, it is only right that we reiterate our views and make that point clear to the minister. So we have absolutely no issue with the amendment, and that's me. Sammy.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to a vote.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And clarification, this is on the amendment. Alderman Cook,
Abstain.
Alderman Guy, Alderman Hussey, Alderman McMorris,
Abstain.
Alderman Middleton,
Abstain.
Alderman Montgomery,
For.
Alderman Wilkinson,
Abstain.
Councillor Jason Barr,
For, John.
Councillor Lillian Barr,
For.
Councillor Raymond Barr. Councillor Boggs.
Members, could I make an assumption that everybody else is for?
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Mayor, I calculate that 4 members have abstained and all other members present and voting are content with the amendment.
Thank you, members. And now back to the substantial motion, and I will ask Councillor Hart to conclude.
Thanks, Mayor. The Good Jobs Employment Rights legislation due to come before the Assembly, as I said, was the most progressive employment legislation ever to be introduced in the North. And it presents an unparalleled opportunity to grow a productive regional economy that benefits our business, our workers and their families within an all-Ireland and global economic context. Good Jobs, which delivers fair wages, secure employment, strong union recognition and collective bargaining rights, are the cornerstone of a fair and inclusive economy. Workers are central to developing our economy. They need to feel valued and rewarded. They are entitled to good employment conditions and enjoy workplace settings where their rights are heard and well protected. The bill will ensure fair treatment of workers in regard to net take-home pay, retention of tips and gratuities, holiday pay and parental leave. It will improve terms of employment by giving workers more say on their working arrangements, such as the type of employment contract which best suits the employer and employee, ensuring that those workers have income security and more predictable work schedules. The legislation will also tackle issues around fire and rehire practices, redundancy and notification periods, and the importance of all workers understanding the terms and conditions of their employment. The Good Jobs Bill will bring tangible benefits to workers' lives across our entire community. Workers' rights transcend the historic community divisions that have hampered political, social and economic progress. Cross-party support endorsing the full implementation of this legislation would represent a powerful political statement about both shared prosperity and a shared future. This is the time for us all to endorse a strong, progressive workers' rights legislation to build a strong regional economy in which both businesses and workers prosper, and we finally begin to eradicate the scourge of workplace inequalities.
Thank you, Councillor Hart. Members, substantial motion, should I assume that the vote will be exactly the same? Yep. Thank you, members. Okay. Moving on to Councillor Harkin motion.
Thank you, Mayor. And can I take the motion as read?
Thank you. And it has been seconded by Councillor Donnelly. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Donnelly, for seconding the motion. I think we are in a dental access crisis. It's been reported that 53,000 NHS patients have been removed from practices over the last 2 years. There are now around 200,000 people who are not registered with a dentist. There's been 114 dental practices handed back their NHS contracts to the Department of Health in the last number of years. Out of 360 dental practices across the North, only 2 are fully NHS, and one of them in Dungiven, as people probably have heard, is at full capacity, and that's the one that a lot of people are going to now to see if they can get registered. So we have a big problem where dentistry has become almost fully privatised. The dental access scheme that is set up for unregistered people has 36 clinics, but there's 200,000 people who are unregistered. So that is just not going to work. So there's a big problem here where a lot of people are finding that they cannot get a dentist. A lot of people are finding that they can't afford the private costs of dentistry. And a lot of children are not able to access dental care, and you just look at the inequalities that are resulting from this already. People's dental health across the North is worse than across the water, and it's because of privatisation and the lack of access. So the Minister of Health, the former Minister of Health, did put more than 9 million in the beginning to try and address this in 2024-25. It's unclear to me if where this money is going and what impact it has. So I think we need to ask questions of the Minister as to what they are doing in the face now of the loss of NHS dentistry. What does it mean that dentistry has become fully privatised and that the prices will lock out a lot of people from being able to access dental care unless they're in an emergency and they have to have an extraction, which is not real dental care. And I think we also need to ask those questions to the Department of Health and the Western Trust. What is the Western Trust plan, if they have one, to actually address dental access? Because it seems like many, many people, particularly vulnerable groups, are going to not have access to dental care. So really this is about, there's been a long privatisation of different parts of the health service. This is the one now that seems to have gone furthest, where people are simply expected to pay. And if you can't pay, you may not get help with your teeth, and that's already showing up in the statistics. So I think we need clarity as to what the Minister is doing, what the Department of Health is doing, and what the Western Trust is doing, because I think we're going to see another wave of people knocking on our doors asking for desperate help to get their children registered and for help with access to dental care. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. I see Councillor Houghton wants to come in.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Harkin for bringing this motion. It is really important that dental care is on the agenda, particularly for young children. The recommendation is that you start bringing your children to the dentist to experience being there and being on the dental chair from 18 months in order to avoid tooth extraction, which is very traumatising for a child. And although I agree with the motion, I do feel that the Public Health Agency do have to play their part in this as well. So I've sent a small amendment to Teresa. Back in the Health and Communities Committee in February, the draft PHA corporate plan was brought to us. Council's response to the draft corporate plan was brought to the committee for our agreement, and I had recommended a change in it, and it was an addition in relation to dental health and dental care across the north of Ireland. So what I had asked Seamus Donaghy to do was to put in a slight amendment to it, and the paragraph that we inserted into the draft corporate plan was to enhance oral health at every stage of life by integrating preventative care, education and equitable access to services into our public health strategies, thereby supporting lifelong well-being and reducing health disparities. So the amendment is just to reflect what we did at that stage, and it's to ask the Public Health Agency where they're at this stage, because if we don't have a public health plan in relation to dental care, then there's not going to be any plan in relation to what services are going to be provided. So if we have a clear and direct, robust plan from the Public Health Agency, then that needs to be reflected in the services that are provided throughout the north of Ireland in relation to NHS care as well. So I hope that you can accept. I think that it will strengthen the motion and it will give us more answers in relation to how this can sort of be cross-referenced and collaboratively working in order to get the services that are needed, particularly for our young children who need dental care from a very, very young age. Thank you.
Councillor Houghton. And who is seconding the motion? Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Okay. I have somebody online to speak, Councillor Cusack.
Okay, thank you. And firstly, apologies for being late to the meeting. Ironically or coincidentally, this was because I had both a doctor's and a dental appointment, which I waited over half a year for, and I was lucky, so I wasn't missing those. Can I also take this opportunity to thank my dental professional, Mrs. Paul, a migrant worker, making an incredible contribution to our patients here. I thank her and I thank all migrant workers and want that put on record. While I was at the dentist, it felt a bit of deja vu moment. The phone didn't stop ringing and every overheard conversation consisted of apologies by staff explaining how their books were closed for new patients Young or old, it didn't matter. The amount of pain they were in, it didn't matter. It was just sorry, no can do. And this was exactly, sadly, this was exactly the same as this time last year. So things haven't changed. Things have actually got worse. So there's no doubt we definitely have a healthcare crisis in all sectors. And children and the elderly are those who are especially suffering, and particularly those who cannot afford to pay. So this means immediate action. Thank you to Councillor Harkin for bringing it up, and I'm more than happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Alderman McMorris.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Harkin for bringing this motion forward. I'm sure most of us in this room as elected representatives will have dealt with dentist issues since we came into office. I regularly ring round every dentist in this district to see if there's any openings for NHS patients, and every time we're shut down. Basically, I concur with what Councillor Cusack said. Do you know what I mean? It's just a sorry, no can do. We definitely have a crisis in regards to it. And, you know, I was looking at the dental access scheme that they had brought forward for this tax year. And I noticed on it whenever I was looking under the Western Trust, they have only 4 dentists participating in that scheme. 3 is situated in Limavady and 1 in Strabane. And I was gobsmacked to realise there was absolutely none in the second largest city within Northern Ireland, Londonderry. This is a real barrier. So even the initiatives that they're bringing forward is a barrier and an exclusion to people that live within this city, which is quite concerning in itself. So, you know, they need to go back and look at, you know, getting dentists to participate in these the schemes that they're running out, because if they don't have dentists signing up to the schemes, then the schemes, no matter how much money they put into it, the schemes are not going to be effective to alleviate the crisis that we're having and experiencing. We also see that this here crisis kind of overflowing into A&E departments. Like, I know a lot of people who just went to A&E department because they just couldn't stand the traffic any longer and they just didn't know where to go. There is no access for people in severe pain in order to get the treatment that they deserve. I also want to mention about pregnant women. Do you know what I mean? Pregnant women are entitled to free dental care. They also can't access, and they're at higher risk of tooth decay and whatever. So, like, this is something that we really, really need to be pushing on and getting answers about where this 9.2 million is and what the outcomes is and what they're seeing, what the benefit is, because I, as an elected representative who basically deal with these issues for constituents on a weekly basis, you know, aren't seeing the benefits of what has come forward. So we both support the amendment and the initial motion. It's a great motion and one that'll benefit if we can get this right. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman McMorris. Alderman Jose.
Thank you, Mayor. 2010, I don't know if Karen or Sharon remembered this issue. I raised it at the Old Strabane District Council when we had the trust bin. And the reason that I raised it was following a conversation with my younger brother, who was Dean of Dentistry at QUB and a senior consultant in the School of Dentistry at Royal Victoria Hospital. He highlighted the fact that this was coming down the line. He highlighted the fact that there was going to be a shortage of dentists and indeed dental technicians. And we are now in a situation that was highlighted by dental professionals to the public authorities back then, which is why I particularly welcome the addition of the amendment to this, because that, you know, that's where we have to dig at and say, look, guys, get your finger out and get this thing sorted. There is the issue of the number of available dentists with their technicians to deal with the situation. And the fewer dentists we have, obviously they can take on so many patients, etc. So totally support the motion that's there, in particular, the amendment, as I say, it was foretold for me 15 years ago and should have been addressed then. It'll take time to redress the current situation that we have, but that's what the Public Health Authority should be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Jose. I have Councillor Norris.
Thank you, Mayor, for bringing me on. We'd like to thank Councillor Hargan for bringing this forward, and myself and the SLP fully support the motion and the amendment. It's simple facts. It's just underinvestment for a lot of years, and a lot of people can't get a dentist. And when you're in a dentist, you're holding on to that dentist so much that you don't want to give it up. And there's people travelling miles and miles. You know, if people move into an area, they're keeping their dentist from another area because they can't get a dentist here. And they're travelling back to their dentist just to take their children to a dentist. You know, so it's just wrong at the minute. But the other fact is, dentists are businesses as well, and they're seeing an impact on their business. We know the cost, and they're trying to balance all that. So there needs to be a real investment in this NHS care. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Norris. Councillor Donnelly.
Chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Harkin for bringing this motion here today, which I fully support, and I also support the amendment offered by Councillor Hutton. Look, a lot of what's needed to be said has been said, but I think it's down just to bad administration or, you know, lack of care. Sounds seriously wrong, as Councillor Alderman Hussey has pointed out, that there has been people highlighting this for a number of years, but unfortunately nobody has taken the decision. And I think that, you know, when we look at it, when there's issues with your oral health, it's not just, you know, it can spread, you know, it can affect people's physical health, it can affect their mental health. Something like a simple crown or a filling displacement can lead, without being treated, will lead to tooth decay, will lead to gum disease, can lead to a bad diet and the deficiencies that can come on from that, whether it be obesity, whether it be diabetes. And there is research that you know, that says that the mouth serves as a gateway to the rest of the body, and the professionals continue to uncover evidence supporting the oral systemic link, and from that they can detect other illnesses. Symptoms of various health issues such as diabetes, cancer and cardiovascular disease can often be detected first in the mouth. Also, harmful bacteria originating in the mouth can enter the bloodstream, leading to severe systemic conditions. So if people aren't getting in to doctors, these issues aren't going to be picked up, and they're going to deteriorate, which down the line will have a deteriorating effect, not only on them, but on the health system. So, you know, as Alderman Hussey has said, this has been highlighted, this has been detected for years, but the administration that operates here have done absolutely nothing about it. And it shows a blatant disregard for the health and well-being of the people who live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Members, I do not hear any dissenting voices on the amendment of the motion, so can I just presume everyone is happy and it's unanimous? Thank you, and I will ask Councillor Harkin to sum up.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hutton, for the amendment as well. We should absolutely include the Public Health Agency in this, and we should be looking to all bodies to take action in this because it is a crisis. And thank you, Councillor Cusack, as well, because in terms of like where we are, what you just said was very important, that it feels like it's getting worse. And that's probably, when you look at these statistics in terms of the number of people who've been kicked off their practice lists, that's a huge crisis. I mean, 53,000 people have lost access to their dentists in 2 years, and nearly 200,000 people who are unregistered. I mean, these are massive numbers. And then there is very few places for people to go, and we are going to have more people, I'm convinced, knocking on our doors very, very soon. You know, so a lot of this is focused on the health minister. But as Councillor Donnelly and Councillor Hussey just pointed out, you know, the privatisation of the health service has been afoot for a long, long time. I mean, this has been engineered. This is not happening by accident. This is happening through disinvestment, underfunding, and what we have now is an almost fully privatised dental in the north. And the determining factor about whether people access dental care or not is going to be class, because those that can afford it will pay it. They're going to be paying higher prices. That's already the case. But people who can't afford it, we're already seeing worsening health outcomes in terms of the state of their teeth. And then that is going to lead then to people going to emergency services, people looking for emergency extractions, and putting more pressure on our already overburdened health service. So I believe that like dental care should be free from the cradle to the grave, as the founding ethos of the healthcare system laid out. So I think we have to reverse privatisation. I think that starts with asking all these questions now. What is being done to make sure people who are being denied healthcare or dental access have a pathway to receive it? How is the money being spent? Does more money need to go there? And this is not just an issue for the health minister. This has to be a priority for the Stormont executive. So thanks everybody for your support for the motion today.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Members, again, no dissenting voices for the substantial motion, so presume again it's unanimous. Thank you, members. Okay, we have a standalone agenda item, ceiling list, page 135 to 138. Is there anything need to be discussed for that? Yep. Nothing? Okay. Okay, we have open for information only, members, response to motions or any letters that have come or any other business. Anyone? Okay. Councillor Riley? Second. Proposed, second. Selling list, seconder, please. Thank you. Okay, now it's just left for me to say this meeting is finished.